Okay, so in order to get our web pages out to the world, they have to be stored on a computer that will serve them up to web browsers. These computers are called, appropriately enough, web servers. Up to this point, we've been coding our web pages on our desktop or laptop machines and looking at them locally. But again, if we want the world to be able to see our work, we have to upload copies of those files to a web server. So what is FTP? We've touched on this during lecture, and it really isn't terribly complicated. To break it down, file refers to a resource created on a computer. A web page, a cascading style sheet, an image, a video, a JavaScript file, etc. Those things we want to make available to other folks for access from their computers. Transfer, in this context, is synonymous with copy. We're going to place a copy of the files we want to share onto the server. And protocol simply means a way of doing something. More precisely, it refers to a standardized set of rules that govern an activity. In a nutshell, we're going to create our files on our lab computers or our laptops, which we will refer to as local computers. And when we're done, use FTP to copy those files over to the web server, which we will refer to as remote computer or remote machine. To make that happen, we have to use a specialized piece of software called an FTP client. An FTP client is designed to handle the protocol part of transferring files, so we don't have to worry about that. It can connect to a remote machine, allow you to navigate that machine's file system subject to some limits, to the location where you want the files to be copied to, navigate your local machine's file system to locate the files you wish to transfer, and finally select the files and folders and copy them to the server. In this class, we will be using a software tool called FileZilla to upload our web pages to the web server. There are many other FTP clients available, but FileZilla is one of the most popular, and it's free. For folks who aren't very familiar with file management, FileZilla is often quite confusing at first, but it really isn't that difficult. If we launch the FileZilla application, we can see that the display has a lot of information. The top and bottom panes of the display aren't terribly important. They just tell us about the connection with the remote computer and the status of any file transfers. In fact, we can change the default display to hide one or both of them, or to resize them. It's a good idea to turn off the bottom display and make the top pane a little smaller. It tells you the status of the connection and if any errors occur. To modify the size of the top or message log pane, hover your mouse cursor over the bottom edge of the pane until the cursor changes from a single angled arrow into a pair of arrows pointing up and down. Then left-click and drag the edge in the direction you want. To turn off the bottom or transfer queue pane, click on the View menu item and deselect Transfer Queue. What's important is the four panes in the middle. On the left, we can see files that are located on our local computer, the ones we've been editing. On the right is the file system of the web server where we want to place those files once they're ready for the world. Notice that the file systems are displayed in a tree or hierarchical format. Everything that is displayed is either a file or a folder. Folders, just like those in a file cabinet, may contain files and or folders of their own. Unlike most file cabinets, however, a computer may have any number of folders nested within one another. The way to identify a given file within its containing folder is called the path. it may be necessary to click on Computer or My Computer to locate your removable drive. Very likely it will be drive E, but as you can see on my computer it's actually drive F because I have 2 hard drives installed. So starting with your external drive, in this case F, the path to the file index.html that is in the lab1 folder, which is in turn stored in the labs folder as we've got things set up thus far, the path would be f/ramseyjw/labs/lab1/index.html. Learning how to navigate through a file system's path becomes important, both in terms of saving your files properly on your local drive, organizing them properly on the remote computer, accessing them on your web browser, and finding them at a later date. Note that when I click on the Lab1 folder in the top pane, the files and subfolders that are contained in that folder are displayed in the pane below. Now that we're in the proper local folder, let's connect to the web server. Across the top of the display, you can see that there are 4 input fields labeled host, username, password, and port. Our host address is ftp.jram.ninja, which we'll enter here. Your username is your ETSU ID. In my case, it's RamseyJW. We will leave the port field blank and click on the button labeled Quick Connect. Notice that information is immediately displayed in the connection status pane, and shortly thereafter we will see a file tree displayed in the right half of the display. In the upper half, if all you see is a single folder named /, click on the little plus sign to the left of it to expand the tree. If you're interested, the front slash has a special meaning in Linux operating systems, and it actually means root. This is conceptually similar to a Windows computer's C drive. You will hear me refer on occasion to your root folder. The path to your root folder is / your account ID. So my root folder on this server is at / RamseyJW. We will then click on the RamseyJW folder. The first time you log into your account on the web server, you will want to make a labs and homework folder just like you have on your removable drive. As you can see, I already have those folders, but to make a folder on a web server using FileZilla, right-click on the right lower pane and select Create Directory, or Create Directory and enter it. You will be prompted to enter the directory's name. In this case, I'll use Labs Test, and click OK. Notice that the new folder then appears in the right top and bottom panes. Since that was just a demonstration of how to create a directory and I don't really need it, I'm going to delete it by right-clicking on it, selecting Delete, and then Yes. Now notice that with my root folder selected in the right top pane, a list of folders and files is displayed below. I can access my labs folder either by double-clicking on it in the bottom pane or clicking on the plus sign to the left of my root folder in the right top pane. I can further drill down to the Lab1 folder in the same way. Now, here's the really important part. Look at the top, left, and right panes. You will see that there is a path displayed across the top of each. They will look slightly different if you're using a Windows-based computer, but you should see, in this order, RamseyJW, Labs, and Lab1. This is why we initially set up our external drives the way we did. It also provides you with visual confirmation that you are copying your files to the proper directory on the web server. Now, to copy a file or files from your local machine to the web server, you can, now that we've confirmed that we're in the proper location on both machines, either double-click on it or drag and drop. It's important also, if you have subfolders on your local drive, in this case images, that you copy them to the web server also. Now that you have a web page ready to be served up, here's a quick trick to save you a little typing. Right-click on the file you want to see. I'll use the instructions file for Lab 1. Select Copy URLs to Clipboard. Remember the clipboard? We saw in Lab 1 that it is a temporary form of storage we can use to cut or copy and paste text in Notepad++. It also works in other Windows applications. So let's launch our preferred web browser and paste the URL into the address field. Now, don't get in a hurry, we're not quite there yet. FileZilla actually copied the FTP address into the clipboard and not the web address. So if we delete all of the text to the left of the jram.ninja part of the URL, we'll be golden. Once you've done that, you can tap Enter and see your newly uploaded web page. It is often the case that once we've uploaded or transferred a file from our local drive to the server, we may have to make changes to that file, which we do on our local copy, save those changes, and then upload the changed file to update it on the server. When we do this, as you can see, we'll get a warning box. It's best to use the default setting and click OK each time you make changes and upload them. I'll explain in more detail why this is the case in class. In summary, the file transfer protocol is a means of connecting to and copying files from one computer to another. It's a pretty old but stable technology. It is not secure. Do not use it to transfer sensitive information. We can make use of FTP through the use of a specialized software application called an FTP client. The client we'll be using for this class is called FileZilla, which is freeware and very popular. FileZilla's display can be customized. Your local computer's files and folders are displayed on the left. The files and folders on the remote computer, in this case a web server, will be displayed on the right. We've set up the directory structure on our removable drive the same way that we will set it up on the web server, so we can be certain that we are transferring files to the correct location. This isn't actually necessary, but helps when we're first starting out using the FTP protocol, and is how we'll do it for the remainder of the semester. We can verify that we're in the right place by checking the paths above the left and right panes. We can copy files to the web server by either double-clicking on them in the lower left pane, or by dragging and dropping them from left to right. And finally, it is often necessary to modify a file on our local computer, save the changes, and re-upload the changed file to the server. This is a standard part of the web design workflow.